Welcome to A Woman's Brew, where women talk about beer. In today's episode, we're Cerveza crazy as we explore Mexican lagers for our ongoing lager series. I'm Joanne, and this is Tori.
Hello, hello.
And we're two beer-loving women on a mission to get more people drinking and talking about great beer. Come join us. So I feel like this episode is going to be another one of those lager series where we have more questions than answers at the end of it. Just putting that out there.
Yeah,
right
probably.
Now.
Probably, but this one is probably going to be the one that takes people by surprise more so, because at least some of the other ones, it's like very clearly what is it? I don't know. It's not as, it doesn't, the other ones that we've done never felt so like black and white. Whereas like Mexican lagers, you think like, oh, that feels like quite a black and white one. But I don't think it is. I mean, no. I don't know. I didn't do a lot of historical research, but the stuff that I did look into and read was very interesting. And I was like, oh.
Yes. So we're going to talk about colonialism today, people.
God, that uplifting topic.
Yep. We're going to talk about that. And I'm gonna be upfront and say I don't have a definition of what a Mexican lager is. Because I don't think there is one. I mean, I can kind of give you a rough ballpark, but the jury is out on what a Mexican lager actually is.
I was going to say, like, it depends on what article. It depends on what article you read as well. Like, one article will say one thing, you Google it, it says something else. And I think we ended up reading the same article, which I feel we should post. It's about Mexican lagers, the history and appropriation of it. And I read through it for like, so I want to go back and reread it again, so I'm not going to pretend like I read it and made notes on it or anything like that, but I read it. Yeah. I didn't read it. I just stumbled across it today when I was looking some stuff up over lunch, and I didn't have enough time to sit there and read it and make notes for it, because you've probably found this way before I have. I just happened to find it separately during a quick Google at lunch, and I was like, that is really interesting. I want to come back and read this. So I made like a few mental notes on the stuff I read, but I want to go back and give it a proper read. But I think we should share that as well, because it was a really good, interesting read.
So there's this, the article that we are referencing is from Casket Beer, and it is titled Mexican Lager History and Appropriation. And there is also another good article on Beer is for Everyone that is called Colonialism and the Legacy of Lager in Mexico. So I'm going to put both of those in the show notes because, mate, there is way more in-depth information about this on those than we can get into in this podcast. So please go read those because they're pretty good. But yeah, I've made notes on, air quotes, the history of Mexican lager. And when we talk about it, you'll see why this is controversial. I don't think it's controversial. I just think it's maybe not as cut and dry as perhaps it can be made out to be. There is, as I said, there isn't, like, as we've said with other styles, there's no actual style guidelines within BJCP or in the Brewers Association for what a Mexican lager is. It currently sits, like the ones that we'll reference today, I don't know about the ones that we're going to drink, but we'll find out. The ones that I'll reference today when I'm talking about the history come in under International Pale Lager, International Amber Lager, and International Dark Lager. But again, like, I think that kind of does them a bit of a disservice because they end up with, like, grouped into the same thing as, like, some kind of European lagers and things. So that's not, you know, this is what some of these articles that I've just referenced are talking about. Like, it's taking away from the cultural heritage of where these actually brewed in Mexico beers or developed in Mexico beers have come from, which is a bit sad. So, yay!
It was colonialism. It was really interesting though. Like some of the bits that I was reading in general as well about, like, that's the exact same stuff that I was thinking of. Like, to be fair, so I had facts, like some interesting facts. I wouldn't necessarily they're all fun facts, but they're interesting, or just facts in general that I've found. You're probably going to touch upon, but because that's what I didn't know if you had read that article or not, so I had taken some stuff from there as well. And So you might end up just basically going through all the facts that I managed to find anyways. But
I've seen your facts. I don't cover all of them, so we can dip into your facts as
well. Well, to be fair, that was just a backup plan in case I needed to go through some facts, but I probably won't need to do many. But to be fair, I was thinking the same thing about stuff like the international dark lager, and not to skip to the fun fact before we get to the history, but there was a bit that I was going through where it was like, because there are traditionally the Mexican lager is pale and light, but there are variations. They have darker versions like the Negro Modelo.
Do you know what? I know it's macro, but it's a good beer.
Sometimes, I mean, like I said, sometimes it's okay. It's like okay. A Modelo, it's okay.
Mexico, Negro, Modelo Negra or Bohemia Obscura. Nice. Get you some of those.
But it does feel like it's really hard to compare that as an international dark lager against something else that would also be in that category from like, say, Germany or something. Like, it just doesn't feel like that's a fair...
The Baltics. Like the Baltic beers are in that exact same category. Like, very different.
To put all of those together, it does feel like a bit different. Like you said, it does all of them a disservice to kind of lump them in together. But yeah, I mean, it was just interesting when I was seeing like some people's definition was like, oh, it's a lager just made with corn or maize as a base,
and then like not even necessarily true.
And then other ones would be like, it's Corona. And I thought about it, and you're right. I think it is like Mexican lagers feels like something that is a lot more defined than it actually is. Whereas like you have like Japanese rice lagers is very clear too. I know that there were some questions over some of that, but like that at least gives you a hint of the name, like a rice lager. Mexican lager, when you think of Mexican lager, I feel like everyone does just go Corona. that is tends to be what everyone sort of would think of as a Mexican lager as well.
Interesting that you brought up Japanese rice lager, because if you look in international pale lager, Asahi Superdry comes under that.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we covered that. We covered that as part of our rice lager episode.
So interesting that is in the same one as air quotes Mexican lager.
Well, I'm going to say no more. I'm not going to bleed into any more of the other stuff I did, because probably you're going to add a lot more better, more interesting context to some of what we're going to do. So I'm just going to let you carry on with that. But I will say this one was an episode in the making, and I'm not going to pretend that all of them are still within date. Some of them are just outside of date. There's only one that's probably fairly out of date. But I'm hoping they'll be all right. It's lager, isn't it?
Be all right. Should we crack the first one? I think let's crack the first one that we've got. See what we think of it, and then I'll go into the history bits that I've got. How does that sound?
That sounds good. Yeah. That sounds like a good option.
So our first one, I feel like listeners might be, they might recognise this one. So we've got Cerveza from Fierce. Mexican lager. I would say that's kind of one of their core
range. I feel like this goes really well with what we talked about last week with core ranges and stuff, because I think this is kind of added now into their core range. Like, it's standard. You can get it on their website. I think you can also get it in for 40ml bottles. We got some cans when they were first kind of like releasing them, because we really, really enjoyed it. But it's nice to see that that's kind of worked their way into the core range. It is interesting. I'm not going to, the only thing I'm going to say is it was really interesting reading that article and kind of seeing how it's represented on the scale. I don't think there's anything intentionally wrong about the use of sort of like the Dia de los Muertos like sugar skull face on it. But it is just interesting because it talks about how a lot of people sort of take that as the face of like Mexican lagers, and I think there is just like that is how it is. So it's interesting. But I actually, to be fair, as a fan of sort of the sugar skull designs in general, I quite like how it looks. It is pretty.
If you're listening, go and look up the Cerveza can, because it is a pretty can.
I'm excited to be cracking and drinking. I've already had one of. I've had this many a time as well, and it's really easy drinking, and it's a very good drink.
Right, so it is a Mexican lager with lime. I feel like this might become a bit of a theme of the day,
and it'll be interesting to talk about, because I've got some speculation about that.
I've got some as well. So
you'll probably cover it before I get to it. So we'll let you go with it.
It smells like lime.
It smells heavily like lime. Very clear, lovely, lovely head on it. It smells like, it does smell like lime, but it smells like a beer with a fresh lime in it. It doesn't smell like artificial lime. It smells like fresh lime.
And it's got that...
Like I've just squoze it in there.
It's got that kind of graininess that you get from pale lagers. Oh.
It's just an aroma that I enjoy.
Is there is it... I wonder if this is subconscious, but I feel like I get a little bit of salt in there as well. I feel like that might just be
like that might be subconscious, because I definitely get more grainy and lime. But
I think it's subconscious that when I smell this combination of flavours, I also get a little touch of salt in there, because I love me a margarita.
Yeah, you love margaritas. I don't. I like strawberry margs and sugar rims. So that's why maybe for me it doesn't land in margarita territory, because I am not a standard basic B margarita with the salt rim. That is not me. I'm like strawberry. Strawberry and sugar in me, bitch.
Oh, well, let's get into this because it smells delicious.
It's just so drinkable.
It's light. It's refreshing.
Drinkable as fuck.
It's got like the lager base it's got a bit of flavour about it. You know, it's like, it's not where you can have some lagers which are light, you don't really taste anything. It's definitely got a little bit of flavour along with that lime.
I think it's enjoyable. It's flavourful. Like, my experience of having this beer on numerous occasions is it's always been the same. It's quite flavourful for for that no frills, like quote unquote Mexican lager with that sort of lime flavour to it. But I feel like it's also, like, as a person that enjoys craft beer and doesn't necessarily go and order macro beers that much, like, I'll have admittedly if somebody has Coronas, like, I'll have a Corona if that's what's on hand. Like, I'm not adverse to drinking a Corona with a lime wedge in it if that's what's on offer. Like, obviously that's not my first choice go to, but I don't not enjoy it if it's what's there. Although I did try an alcohol-free one in the office the other day, and I was literally like, it's not the one. Absolutely was not the one. But what I was going to say about that is more that this beer is something that I feel like, as a person that enjoys not necessarily macro lagers with lime in it as a first choice, I find it enjoyable. But equally, I feel like it could be given to somebody that does enjoy like a Corona with lime, and they would be like, oh, that it would almost be that experience that they're wanting. Because I know that sometimes I've given somebody that likes a macro something that is kind of like the step up in craft, and then they go, oh, that's got too much. It's almost like that's got too much flavour, and that is too much, and I don't like it, and it's a really like off-putting. But I think the way the flavours land in this, it lands in the same. It would give that same effect to that person that likes the Corona with lime, as much as it would also give like that happy experience to someone that just enjoys a really well-made lager.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is like sitting in the garden eating tacos beer, isn't it?
It is definitely eating tacos beer, and I love tacos. Like, tomorrow's Tuesday. If we had recorded this on Tuesday, that arguably would have been better, because I could have just had my dinner in here. Taco Tuesday, I could have had my tacos. Could have had my Mexican lager. I'm just gutted that I don't have my other one anymore. Like, we had 2 cans, but I finished one with I had a leftover taco bowl, and that's why I had it. We had tacos, we had leftovers from tacos. I made a taco bowl, and I was like, I can't be having this alone. Better have this lovely cerveza with it. So yeah, I was a fan. I can recommend.
Should we do a little history lesson?
We shall.
Here we go. Let me put my nerd glasses on, sliding them up my nose.
Oh, I just put my nerd glasses away before we started doing this. I probably need them. I've been getting headaches. So.
Colonialism. So, Mexico, if you weren't aware, was settled by Europeans who came over there.
You don't say.
Yeah.
No shit.
The Spanish, the French, and what we now realise is Germany, Austria, and Switzerland all came over at various different points, and took over the land from from the natives. And there can be some thoughts around, how the settlers, the immigrants, however you would like to think of these people. Yes?
I'm raising my hand because I just also want to say, like, what does wind me up is when people think like Spain and Mexico are like same, and you're like, not same,
No, not same,
not
same.
same.
Not same,
like there might be some shared, like there might be some shared things between them, but not same. No.
Oh,
No.
Bless them people.
That's why it's like I'm not gonna call any particular people out, but I just wanted to say, for the record, when you said the Spanish wet and cellar, not same.
No.
Sorry, carry on. I just wanted to get that in there.
Same sort of people probably are the ones that think that these people came in to this country where there were already people, and there were, native peoples that were living there and doing quite well, thank you very much. They came in and saved them and introduced brewing to them. Incorrect.
I wasn't going to say that, but yeah, say that same.
Incorrect. There were already fermented beverages happening in Mexico, as with most cultures around the world. You know what? We're humans. We enjoy a fermented beverage. So most cultures found a way to ferment things and stuff to create alcohol to have a good time. So obviously there was tequila, mezcal, and another beverage called pulque, and they were all fermented from agave. And then there was tejuino, which is probably the closest thing to beer that they had, which was a form of, air quotes, beer made from corn. So, they were brewing, thanks very much. Didn't need your European stuff, but cool. Bring it over if you like.
I'm glad you said those because I had them noted down at one point in mine, and I was like, I'm going to be absolutely, when I mispronounce this slightly, like I am going to be absolutely obliterated by somebody being like, that is not how you say it. So I'm glad it was you saying it, not me.
Check my pronunciations. Thank you. I have phonetic things written down in my notes so that I can pronounce it.
That's how I've started approaching it, is phonetically written.
Interestingly, pulque was still around for quite a long time, but is actually making a resurgence now as well. Pulquerias, you may have seen if you've ever been to Mexico. Some places still have these names on them. But it was the European settlers that were turning around and saying that it was poison and that people shouldn't be drinking it and that they should, turn to beer because it's so much better for you than pulque, which is just another way of oppressing the native peoples within a land.
I can get behind somebody trying to like convert people to beer by being like, it's great for you, lie about the benefits of it and be like, beer is great, it's gonna do amazing things for you, it's gonna make you healthy, you need it when you're pregnant for the iron levels or something. I don't know, like spreading misinformation, it's fine. But yeah, you can't be like, that shit's poison. That is your stuff shit.
No, that's poison.
Not good.
Get rid of it.
That's not. I can't back that.
Colonialism.
I cannot be co-signing on that one. I don't think
this is what us Europeans did. We came over and like seriously, my family goes like into the 1700s from Kent. Like it's definitely my people that went around and did this around the world. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that we did that. So yeah, they were saying that. So pulque has started to come back. Yay. So if you ever try that, it's from agave. Give it a try. Have you tried pulque? Let us know what it's like because I've not tried it. So let us know, listeners, if you've had it. It is believed that the Spanish may have introduced European beer and brewing techniques in the 16th century. And in 1864, the French put Maximilian I, who was not an Austrian, as the emperor in Mexico. But he was executed not many years later in 1867. However, his very short reign, in that like 3 years before they got rid of him, he managed to cultivate a love of, or at least forced a love of Vienna lager on the people because he loved Vienna lager.
He cultivated. Is it really cultivation if you're
No, I don't think so. I think he just forced it on people. But
much how my friends, does that mean when I force people to drink something, I'm cultivating. I'm in my household and the people directly around me and my family, my friends.
Very similar.
I'm cultivating a love of craft beer, and really they're just like, I don't want that, and I'm like, you do want it.
Yeah, I mean, but actually, it turned out that Vienna lager, that style of beer, that amber lager, goes really well with Mexican cuisine. So that's why it lasted so long, because actually it goes really well with the film. But he kind of forced his love of Vienna lagers onto the populace and brought over Austrian brewers to brew it. So there's sometimes you'll see things where it says Vienna lager is the lager of Mexico. It's not true, because Maximilian I forced it on people because he loved it. But there are still amber lagers. They're probably it's probably better. Like, some brewers will still call them Vienna lager. They're probably not, because they might have switched up the ingredients to be a bit more local. They might have tweaked it a little bit over the years. But an amber lager is something that's still being made in Mexico and is still enjoyed with the cuisine. It's thought that Mexico's history of lager brewing actually started with Santiago Graf at Cerveza de Toluca in Mexico. It's one of their first, one of the first breweries that started doing European beer. And this is because Santiago was Swiss, interestingly. And
I did not see that coming.
Right? I know. I didn't know. I was like, he is Swiss.
No, I think we're supposed to be like not going with stereotypes on this. That was definitely not. I did not think you were going to be like Santiago, the Swiss,
the Swiss brewer. But he imported the first ice machine into Mexico in the early 1880s. So before, they'd been brewing ales and things, but and their own stuff, obviously. But to make a really good lager, obviously, it needs cold temperatures to be able to ferment properly. To get the really good stuff, they needed temperature control of some sort, because it's quite hot in Mexico, if you didn't know. So, whereas in Germany and Europe, there was cold caves and things where they were doing it, and the temperatures, they could make that work. They think the first proper lagers were being made when he brought in this ice machine. Again, pinch of salt here, right? Because Vienna lagers were brought over by Maximilian I, and he brought brewers over, but then the first ones weren't really brewed until 1880s. Got a little bit of a weird timeline going on here, peeps, so bear with us, because these are our lovely stories that we like to tell about beer. So that brewery, Toluca, and another brewery called Cerveceria Cuauhtémoc were the two bit breweries that they think really kind of built up the lagers of Mexico from a European perspective. I'm just going to keep throwing in from a European perspective. I
feel like we should do a blanket caveat on all that as well. A lot of these stories are from it's a lot of European people telling the story and the history of Mexican lagers and Mexican history.
This is a very kind of I'm giving you very surface level so that we can get into the beer style. Go and read the two articles that we've linked in the show notes, because they go way more in depth if you're interested. It's really interesting, more than I can go into on this episode, otherwise we'd be here for hours.
Well, yeah, part of that being the history around Austrian immigrants coming in. They're like, historically, is there even documentation to say some of this happened?
Right.
It's just effectively some of it is just rumor,
and some of it is written by Europeans or by Americans. And they were coming in and saying that pulque was poison. All of this is the air quotes victors wrote these books and
Yeah.
the history. So
100%. And to your point as well, that article,
a pinch of salt and some lime, like
a pinch of salt and some lime, put it in a rim it on the glass,
Yeah.
you're fine. But yeah, I mean, it was even interesting what you said about like the Vienna lager stuff, because in that article, obviously that we both read, that you should definitely go and read. It was just like really interesting, because it was also like, yeah, there's not this, you know, this probably isn't actually the history of the Vienna lager side of things, but there are still Mexican breweries actively calling it
they're still
a Vienna
that.
lager. So like, that's not going to help dispel any myths, because there are still so many people referring to it as a Vienna lager. But yeah, I'll let you carry on, but people really need to read the article, because it's really, really interesting.
So Toluca, there are adverts from the time that show that they made a variety of beer styles, which included a Pilsner, an Extra, a Standard, and a Bock. So that was interesting. One of the beers that they made was called Victoria. It was an amber beer. Tori's looking pretty because it's named after her.
Me. It was named after me.
In 1906.
Yeah, I'm a vampire. It's fine.
It's an amber beer. It, you know, some people will say it's a Vienna lager. It's inspired by Vienna lagers, let's say. Produced for the first time by Toluca in 1906. It is still produced today. It is now, however, produced by Modelo, and Modelo also make Corona, just as a side fact.
They do be like that.
Yeah, they also make Pacifico Clara, which is another Mexican lager you can get hold of, and Modelo Negra, which we were talking about earlier.
I really don't hate Modelo.
If I was in
I don't
Mexico,
hate it.
I'd pick a Modelo over.
In the right circumstances, I really don't hate a Modelo.
Yeah.
Just leave that there.
Our PPR moment. Modelo Negra. I enjoy one of those. So then the other brewery that was quite developmental in Mexican lagers was Cerveza Cuauhtémoc. They were founded in the early 1890s. Their big brands that they started making were Carta Blanca and Bohemia. These are some of the oldest Mexican beer brands that are still around. These beers are still being made under that brewery name. But they also make Bohemia Classica, Bohemia Obscura. They also make Dos Equis and Dos Equis Amber. So that's that family.
I feel like I don't really hear a lot about. I don't feel like I hear about Dos Equis a lot over here, but I feel like I heard about it a lot more in the US. And I think that Antonio Banderas does the adverts for Dos Equis. Right. Like I can just picture Antonio Banderas' voice being like, Dos Equis. Is that the most interesting man in the world? Is that advert? Hold on.
I think it might be. Is it? Yeah.
I think it's like the most interesting man in the world, and I'm Googling this now because it's gonna really bother me. It is Dos Equis! Yeah, the most interesting man in the world was an advertising campaign for Dos Equis, featuring actor Jonathan Goldsmith as a bearded, debonair older gentleman with the voiceovers that were both humorous and outrageous. And I really want to say that it was like Antonio Banderas at some point doing like voiceovers or something, but maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Maybe it just, that's, I think of like his suave voice talking about it. Yeah. But like, it would just be like, oh, this man does like these ridiculous things. And they'd be like, because he's the most interesting man in the world and he chooses to drink Dos Equis. Oh, those were like pivotal adverts in my life.
They're like Maxwell House adverts over here. You won't know about Maxwell House. It was a coffee brand.
Oh no, I do know that, but I don't know their adverts. But I do know the brand.
There was good adverts over here. The ones that stick in your head. But like as I said, listeners, more questions than answers out of this episode again today. So those are some interesting breweries, and some of the brands that they make that we still see today. I think the thing is, we're sat here drinking this beer, Mexican lager with lime. I don't think any of those beers really relate to this beer that we're drinking here.
No.
And I don't think they really relate to what is being put out by craft breweries as, air quotes, Mexican lager. Because I think when you get this Mexican lager, it's always got this kind of hint of lime about it.
It's not what you think it is either. I don't think of like darker, anything with darker malts or anything being a Mexican lager.
I mean, when I was in Mexico and I was drinking beers, those were my favourite ones. Like, you know.
Oh, that's exactly what I would gravitate towards. 100%,
right?
That's what I'd gravitate towards.
Make more of those.
For sure. But I do.
As your Mexican lager.
I do think like I just wouldn't. That's not what I would be thinking of at all.
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because I felt the same way, like reading that article and being like, oh, and then this brewery made this, and this, and I was like, that is like when they were like, oh, and this brewery made a bock, and I was like, that is not what I'd be expecting to get. It was interesting about the whole for lagering it needs to be colder temperatures, and I never really thought about the fact that like Mexico though isn't really the right temperature for lagering, is it?
Mexican lager, like it's not a place. The climate is not a good place to make lager.
Yeah,
unless you've got artificial refrigeration.
But I think like you don't think. You kind of just take it as a given of like, surely there's just been Mexican lager around for like ages. But you just don't think about the fact that, it probably hasn't been around for as long as you think it has. By any means.
Exactly. So I think it's really interesting. I read that article and at the end of it I went, that's really interesting. There is a rich history of brewing in Mexico. Don't think any of it relates to Mexican lager that we're talking about today, though. So I did find something else about that, however, when I was doing my research. So I now can't remember where I read it, but when I was looking up Mexican lager history, I think a plausible reason as to why we consider a Mexican lager to be this pale lager base with lime in it is because of Corona. So Corona, as we know, comes in clear glass bottles. We've talked about it before on the podcast, but in case anybody's missed it, clear bottles are not the best way.
They're not the one
to store your beer because the hot products in them are reactive to UV rays, and it is going to do what they call skunking. So you open it up and you get that like skunky, weedy smell when you open it. It's just not very pleasant.
It's not attributed to taking your beer. Despite what people think, I feel like we need to do a whole episode on misinformation and misunderstandings. It is not because you've taken a beer in and out of the fridge too many times, and that change in temperature has caused a skunking. That is not the case.
It's to do with reactivity with UV lights. In fact, if it's a clear bottle, so clear bottles have the worst protection. Green bottles have a little bit of protection, but not a lot. Really, you want brown bottles or cans, which is why a lot of people have gone to cans, because it really protects your beer the best. Like, even if you've got your bottles out, like if they're out in a shop and there's like lights and like the sunlight can go into it, you can even do it like even under sun lights. UV rays will still be able to get into the beer and make this happen to your beer. So to mask that, when they were opening, when they had their Coronas that were like this, apparently, this is one story, because I'm sure there's other reasons why, but apparently adding the lime to a Corona covered up that skunking, which is why they started doing that. And then that is how we've ended up with Mexican lager with lime, because it comes from that. That is a theory as to why we are here.
I can give you the other two theories because that was one of my fun facts. Fun or interesting facts was it's obviously the as you touched upon, the lime is not part of that brewing process. Really, it's not like anyone's gone, oh, we've added it because of this particular brewing reason. It's basically one other theory. So one theory was obviously to mask that skunking because Corona used it, because it actually wasn't that well known or prevalent before, like you said, before Corona. There wasn't a lot of history being like, yes, this is definitely here. So another thought of why it happened is that it was believed to have originated as a way to sanitize the rim of the bottle of the glass or to keep flies out. So the sanitization side of things, it was the metal caps would leave rust, and to clean that off, like the water historically is it's notoriously known for not being the best to actually drink. Supposedly, whether that's right or wrong, that is what was being said, was you don't want to really drink the water there, and therefore the lime would be the best way to sanitize the top and get the like rust off from a bottle cap, or just clean the top of a bottle full stop. Or you'd put the wedge of the lime in because it would keep flies out of the bottle. Why that's probably untrue is because if you to keep a fly out, the wedge would have to be in the neck of the bottle. So how the ever-loving heck are you drinking it? So you'd have to push it in to do that. Whether that was a means to stop it while you were transporting, and then I don't know. But the third and most realistic reason for why is just because Corona used some clever marketing.
That too, yeah, that's always a good one.
And to be honest, I was like, that is, that was the one that had probably the most realistic reason around it, because really I can't think of a time. I feel like it is most synonymous with Corona, and like, yes, you have these Mexican
100%.
lagers like flavored with lime, but it's all meant to be like the replacement of Corona, the nicer version of Corona, the trendier version of Corona, the tastier version of a Corona. It conjures up those vibes. Like, it's not like they're just like, in general, it's specifically a Corona usually. So
I mean, I'm not mad at it because it's tasty.
It's tasty.
It's a tasty combo.
What I imagine happened is clever marketing, and they went, actually tastes pretty good.
Yeah.
You use a lime a lot when you're having like sort of some of the flavor, like, some of the flavor things that you've got there with the food that you're having that it pairs really well with. You've already got the lime to hand, shove it in there, tastes great. Like,
yeah. I was also reading an article from Great Lakes, which is a brewery in the US. They make a Mexican lager with lime, and they were pointing out that also a lot of breweries, when they're creating their Mexican style lager, will use flaked corn in it as a throwback to that ingredient. And some breweries will also use blue corn in it.
I do like blue corn. I've had blue corn like tortilla chips and stuff. Oh, so this is my favorite. I prefer it.
So they say that was like, so these bits are kind of a throwback to when they were importing malt to brew these beers, but it was inconsistent. And so they started using refined whole cane sugar and corn as sources for fermentable sugars. And heavy taxation from like the Spanish for bringing stuff over also meant that they started using more local products rather than importing it over. Bloody Europeans.
It's not much more you can say to that.
It really isn't. So that interesting. This might also. Has this got corn in it? I can have a look. Don't know. Yeah, it's got corn in it. Because of course, as well, corn is used in light lagers because it gives you fermentable sugars, but doesn't add to the flavour. It adds no discernible flavour, depending on how you do it. Right, shall we try another one?
I think so, because that's how much I've got left of it. I'm almost done.
If you're listening,
the whole can.
We haven't got a lot left.
Whole
can.
can.
Only a 330ml can.
So good though. Right. Well, speaking of clear glass bottles.
Yes, I'm interested to try this one.
Me too.
So our second one is Luz.
Luz.
I was like, Luz can't be right.
I was going to say Luz, and then when you said Luz, I was like, yeah, might be Luz.
Luz. I think Luz sounds right. Gluten-free Mexican lager from Omnipollo.
I was really interested when I saw this because I was like,
pleased that Omnipollo have got it in a clear glass bottle.
Yeah. So I feel like I've got additional questions because I don't expect just a Mexican lager or any lager really from Omnipollo. I feel like there's not enough descriptors in this to be Omnipollo. It just says gluten-free Mexican lager. It doesn't say gluten-free strawberry, banana, peanut, waffle, frozen Mexican lager. It just says Mexican lager.
You would have thought that they'd have used like blue corn or something interesting.
Something like intense. I don't know. I think I would have thought they would have like amped it up. But I think the fact that because normally they are very bold with their flavour choices. And I'm not suggesting that they don't pay off with the bold flavour choices. I really enjoy Omnipollo beer. But I'm surprised they've actually gone for like quite a pared back, no frills, just a straight lager. I really like the label, but then I also like when we got it, I was like, I'm not sure I love that it's a clear bottle, like a very clear bottle, but maybe they were trying to emulate that Corona aesthetic. And to be fair, I've kept this in the fridge away from all sunlight in a shed, so
it should be fun.
I'm really interested to see what it's going to taste like, so
all right, let's
cracking it open.
Crack it.
It's the one I think out of the only time I ever remember being this excited to try a beer and seeing how it would taste was when we had Verdant's lager.
Oh yeah.
When they had their Helles, because I was like, oh, how is this going to be? This is like genuinely, this is exactly probably what I would expect in terms of how it looks. Very clear, very, very light coloured, a nice thick white foamy head.
Mine smells skunked.
It's really hard because while I don't think I wouldn't use the word skunked per se for mine, but it is on that path. But then I also think that even when I've had certain fresh macro beers, it smelled like that and it's not skunked. So I'm actually not convinced this is skunked.
Maybe
I think this is
beer.
just the smell of what it's emulating. It just smells like a dive bar to me.
It does. It absolutely does.
In a good way. Like I'm not adverse to a dive bar. I prefer a dive bar. So to me, it smells like a dive bar where I'm going, or like a venue that's like a really like DIY venue where you're going to go see a gig and then you're like, I might as well get a beer, but what do they have on offer? And this is what they have on offer.
Foamy head on it. Mine's really lasting.
I was going to say it's lasting quite a bit as well. Yeah. Look at that lacing. Ooh, spilled it all over me. Got too excited with the lacing.
Throwing it around now. Right, we're going in.
All right, I'm going in. Yeah, cheers.
All right, cheers.
I don't think that tastes skunked. I think that it literally tastes like what it's trying to emulate.
Yeah.
It doesn't taste skunked to me. I wouldn't say it has the most depth of flavour, but I feel like that in itself is really interesting for Omnipollo, that it's that they've managed to make something that is very pared back on the flavours, very pared back. There's almost like a bitterness that I kind of wouldn't expect. It feels more fuller. Like when you look at it and when you smell it, it feels like flavour-wise there's more going on than, not necessarily in the right ways, but there's almost more there than what you expect by looking at it and smelling it.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Like darker's not, I don't mean darker as in like when we're talking about darker beers, but like just like I don't want to say negative. Like there's these flavors that I go, oh, I don't expect you to be in there, like bitter, and I don't know the way to phrase that.
There's like a.
It's dark is not what I mean.
Is it earthy? I get what you mean.
Yes. Yes.
It's earthy, right?
Yeah. I'm not even.
Maybe a little bit of corn.
I'm gonna say something controversial though.
Here we go.
I don't even dislike it. because it tastes to me like
right.
it's making me feel like holiday vibes. I've actually got lime in the fridge. Should I chuck a bit of lime in the rest of this?
Chuck a bit of lime in it.
All right, hang on. I'm going to go slice a lime quick, and
Okay.
I'm going to chuck it in the bottle like it was a Corona. I'm going to keep some.
Oh my God,
pour a little bit more to the side. All right, bear with. I'll be right back. Right, I've returned. I've got my slice of lime. I'm going to try to just shove it in this bottle. Oh God, the slice is too big. It's too big a slice. Oh my God, it's so bad.
This is great listening.
It's so bad. If you got to watch the video for this. Oh God, it's like how I feel when I'm putting my jeans on after I've washed them for the first time. It's not great. This is the problem. This is like you're not. Yeah, you're stopping the flies from getting in there, but you can't fucking drink it, can you? Oh, this is gonna be.
There she goes.
This is gonna be a multi-sheeter. I need to clean this before I finish pushing that in. This is bad. This is not a great one. R.I.P. my desk, ripperonis. This is not good.
My goodness.
This is not good.
This is brilliant.
Oh God, this is worse than the time that I spilt, like when I made a slushie and spilt it everywhere on my counter. That was bad. This is second to that, maybe. All right. No, actually, we've definitely had beer canos worse.
We
than
have.
that.
Yeah.
It's in. She's in.
She's in.
Hey, and it is like foaming up the way that I sort of expected to when you have a Corona. I mean, it took a bit. It's in there now, but now the part that I didn't think about, I have to drink out of the bottle.
You got to drink out of the bottle, and you know you hate that.
I hate it so much. But Corona's the one exception, to be fair, because if you put a lime in it, I'm like, I have to. So now I feel like it's okay because I'll just bottom up.
Here we go. This is definitely the short. How is it?
Oh God, I just got like a full. So obviously because of that fucking debacle, okay, the absolute palaver of putting the lime in there. I mean, it's disinfected. Limey. I've disinfected the whole top and down the side of the bottle. It's all disinfected with lime, and that is all over my mouth. It is, but I'm not mad about it. I don't, just don't dislike it, but. I like it.
Yes!
It was worth the effort. I actually kind of want to put this back in the bottle. It feels more authentic drinking out of the bottle. Yeah. Let's see, can I pour some of it back in?
I'm going to have to cut this bit.
Wait, I only spilt a tiny drop. Look at that. Look at that. She did it. There was only a tiny little kiss that fell on my lap. Oh, yeah, there we go. This is my drink now. Not mad about it.
Lime now. I feel like it'd be good with lime.
Well, this is when you're a person like me, when you're a distinguished connoisseur that likes having lime in there. They don't want to pay the extra for the Diet Coke with the lime, so I'll buy the lime and then I'll have freshly squozen lime put into my. I like the word squozen. Yeah, squozen's a favourite word of me. So like you can say like, oh, I squoze it, but like squozen is the word for me. Yeah. So I like having that. So sometimes, and I've been making a lot of mango salsa lately for my tacos, just to amp it up a bit. Salsa. Yeah, I like to add the extra flavour profiles there. So I have fresh lime on hand for that. So this is a win. I'm happy with this. I feel like I'm going to be on a beach now, though.
As I'm drinking more of it, I'm getting into it.
Yeah, I didn't dislike it from the beginning though, but then I also appreciate a well-timed Corona. Like I do.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get that.
So this is, I'm a fan. Big ups to that.
Not
what I expect from Omnipollo.
You've got to choose between the Omnipollo and the Fierce.
Ooh, I like them for different things. Ooh, I think I'd maybe want the... so far I'd want the Fierce when I was actually sat out in the sun and only having a beer. I actually think the Omnipollo with lime in it specifically, that's probably more what I'd want to pair food with.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that has there's less, I think because the lime is so much stronger in the Fierce beer, it's nicer to just sit and drink that, whereas the Omnipollo is a little bit more, I think, pared back in terms of like the depths of some of those flavours. there is a bit more bitterness to it as well, and I think that would just complement food better. So like I feel like I could have some proper like spicy tacos, and I'd be like homemade tortilla, like yes,
with
carnitas.
the fierce one. You've got to have something with the lime that the lime will work with, because it's such a dominant flavour. I get that.
And you know how like sometimes we've had it where it's like too similar that it almost
it cancels each other out.
It can take away from that. Whereas I think that this is just like the nice amount of it. I'd maybe slice my wedge a bit smaller in future, but that's all right.
You live and you learn.
You live and you learn for sure. I didn't take a photo, I don't think, before I chucked all the rest of it back in, so I'm gonna need to steal your photo for that.
Yeah, I can send you a photo.
I'm not sure that I can put on Untapped like drinking out of a bottle.
Oh my god, could you? I feel like that's a like, you put it on, we'll leave it for a week, and then we do a bonus episode seeing people's reaction to it. Can we, please?
Maybe.
Can you put it in your stories and see what people's reaction is to it?
All right, let me take a photo of it now.
Listeners, you're hearing content in the making.
Oh, I don't want to do it. I feel like it's not. You can't really see the lime. Maybe I can do it from like an angle where you don't see the lime that well. Oh, hold on. I'll just get it to spin round a bit. There we go.
This is the Mexican lager episode that you always wanted, listeners.
Me being like, I've just shoved a lime in an Omnipollo. Don't worry, guys, I got it.
We're doing this so that you don't have to, listeners.
I think you should, to be honest.
Well,
and I think if anything,
recommends.
this is teaching you to be less judgmental. Just because it's one name and one specific style and it's Omnipollo, go for it. Don't be fooled.
Live your best life.
Live your best life. Don't think like, oh, they can't do no frills. They can.
Good job, Omnipollo.
Good job, Omnipollo. I am pleased with that. Sorry, I'll let you carry on with what you were actually talking about now that I'm sticky, sad, but happy mess. I don't know, but I just thought I'm going to go get some lime. And then, I said it was giving me PTSD. I was like, I cannot be doing this. This is...
I think we should try the third one.
Yeah, all right. Well, I'm quite digging this, but yeah, all right. Let's get the third one out then.
All right, last one. In this, we might have some bonus content.
Well, yeah.
So
we'll see. We'll see what happens. See if we're there yet.
If you want to see some bonus content, head on over to Coffee, which is linked in our bio. You can get our audio feed now and videos of our bonus
That's
content.
for you, Ruth. Audio.
That's for you. That's just for Ruth. It was a lot of work, Ruth, so you better listen to it.
I feel like that was intimidating. I feel like that was intimidating. Like, you bet she's going to be running when she listens to this, and be like, yeah, keep running, and you better do that.
Love you, Ruth.
Keep running. You can do it. We believe in you.
We do.
Yeah, and I promise the bonus content is not me struggling to put limes in any other bottles. I promise. You got that for free, so you're welcome. That's not behind the paywall.
Next one is Northern Monk Mexican lager. That's what this says. Go down Mexico way. Super refreshing light lager with lime and salt. This one's got salt in it.
This one's definitely for you. Big aroma.
This one's for me. Big aroma of citrus for sunny afternoons and long evenings to keep you coming back for more. Right, copywriter at Northern Monk.
You got the brief.
Yeah.
You got the brief.
Did.
That's it. It starts off with, as I wander, my thoughts ever stray south of the border down Mexican way. I'm sure that's probably like a famous quote or a famous poem or something. I was going to say, it's got to be it's got to be a famous thing for sure. But if not, well done.
Good job. Oh, and then this one's got maize in it.
Oh, there we go. That's fun. All right. Sorry, Omnipollo. I've got to park you to the side. Oh, such a satisfying pour sound, that one. Ooh. Again, it all just looks exactly as I expect. Very light coloured, very beautiful white foamy head on top. Those little probably medium speed moving carbonation bubbles there. Oh,
nice foamy whitehead.
I would argue that this has a similar smell to the Fierce beer. However, I think the lime in this lands more as a lime cordial than a fresh lime.
Ooh.
This doesn't smell as like fresh lime replicate as the Fierce one did. I'm very much getting like a lime cordial / like more of a synthetic lime.
Yeah, it seems more kind of citrus, air quotes, than dead on lime.
And it feels very like light in that. Like it doesn't feel as bold as the Fierce one did. Because the Fierce one... No, I'm not mad at it either, but the Fierce one smelled so bold and lime that could have actually gone away, where you taste it and you go, it's too much. It tastes synthetic, it's too much, but it tasted really fresh and really nice. This one, I hope it just doesn't taste like a shot of cordial in a beer, because that would make me sad.
All right.
Okay,
let's go in. Cheers. Ooh.
You definitely get salt. I think there's a heavy bitterness to the back end for me on this one. There's lime there, but it's very much subtle. Interestingly, I wouldn't say it lands synthetic. Maybe could be cordial, maybe not, but in the sense of it probably is similar to the Omnipollo in that I have manually put in a bit of like a wedge of lime, so I'm only getting this like touch of lime. It is definitely not an overpowering level of lime, but it's there. But I think for me it still does land a little bit more like a cordial.
I'm getting like a creaminess to the mouthfeel that's making me think of coconut. It's very like
that is bizarre,
but it's weird. Like it's not what I expected.
To be fair, I'm not going to disagree with you. You say coconut, but it's very, very back end of the taste to me. Right before the bitterness, there's coconutty, and then it ends in this like bitter crispness. Yeah. But it is really weird that you say that. Yeah,
unexpected.
Arguably, almost a bit like milky, like coconut milk.
Yes.
Not your traditional like coconut.
No.
Coconut milk for sure.
Yeah. Like I'm drinking this Mexican lager out of a coconut.
I guess in itself that could be like some level of vibes of like it probably has more of a different feel that it's going for in comparison to the other ones.
I mean, I like it.
I don't dislike it. I think the first sip I was like, oh, I don't know if I like it. The second sip I was like, oh, okay, I could like it. And then the third or fourth sip onward, I was like, yeah, actually, I could vibe with this. And it's pretty... I think once my mouth adjusts to the bitterness, it's because the other ones before them weren't... Even though the Omnipollo was more bitter, this has more of a pronounced bitterness to it. That just going between them, when you land on that one, you're like, oh, it is the most bitter. And it takes a bit to adjust.
I wouldn't expect a bitterness from air quotes Mexican lager.
Same. That's why I think it's taken me by surprise. Is because I've gone, oh, I don't know, not what I was expecting.
This whole one has taken me by surprise, but I think it makes me think of holiday vibes more than the other two.
Interestingly, I feel like this would be the one. So the Fierce one for me is the one that feels like the most of what I expect that it should taste like. If we didn't just have this whole conversation today about colonialism and all that jazz, that's the one I would expect when someone says Mexican lager. That's the tasting notes I would assume. 100%. Omnipollo's feels like that's the one that genuinely I probably would give that to somebody that likes. I mean, to be fair, I would for Fierce as well, but I think I could potentially swap out that Omnipollo.
You could put that in a glass and be like, "Here, have this Corona."
And I think somebody, yeah, and I think somebody might like they might notice that it tastes a bit different, but they probably chalk it up to just like different serving techniques or something. Like the different bar has a different standard. I feel like you could get away with that, but not in a negative way. Just in a, I think it would work in the right setting. And I think like for me, that is barbecue, beer, outside in the sun. So is the fierce Cerveza. But the old Flaxed or Northern Monk one, for me, feels more, I am actually on holiday in another country, having probably what is more of a local, even a local macro beer, more so than what I would expect, especially from like some of the stuff that like Northern Monk does as well, where the flavors are again a lot more bold. I think it's the same thing with Omnipollo. Sometimes they have beers that are so much more bold in flavor, that when you see it paired back, you're like, oh, how is this going to be? And it's quite good, actually.
It keeps making me giggle because what it's making me think of is, all right, so I picture the scene, because this is what's going on in my head every time I take a sip. I'm on a beach in Mexico.
Okay.
I'm on a sun lounger. There's I've got an umbrella over me because I cannot be out in the sun. I will catch on fire. I'm an actual vampire.
I'm the exact opposite. I'm like, sun me. No. We're going.
Absolutely not. Sea is over there gently lapping away. Got my nice Mexican lager. Somebody next to me with some coconut sun cream on.
Oh, no, I completely get that. And I keep
getting a whiff of it as I drink my beer. Like, that's how subtle it is. It's that someone over there has got coconut sun cream on.
I get exactly what you're saying. And that's
the image that's in my head when I'm drinking this beer.
Do not disagree with that. That is 100%. Like, I can completely see that visual. For me, it's like I don't have the umbrella. I'm out there.
Well, yeah, because you're a lizard.
I am soaking up the rays. I'm on a warm rock, laying out in the sun. I'm not on a sun lounger. I'm on a warm rock on the beach. Well, I mean, to be fair, I feel like that is my Mediterranean heritage, being like, sun person, go.
I told you.
When you say you're Kent, you're Kent for hundreds and hundreds of years. That's right. I enjoy the sun enough for the both of us, so it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that is completely. I can see myself in that scenario. But sans umbrella, I'm like the sun directly on me. I'm like, maybe it's getting a bit toasty. Maybe I go in the water for a bit. I don't know. But yeah, distant sun cream vibes.
That's how I describe how I want my steak done. Right, I want the cow in the field over there gently mooing.
That's what I say as well. Sort of. I'm not quite like that. They'll be like, oh, how do you want it? Like rare or medium? And I'll be like, oh, medium rare. You know, I want it like somewhat mooing, but not that mooing.
Just it's in the field over there, and I can just about hear it mooing. That's how I want my steak done.
Just about hear it.
Yeah, just about hear it mooing.
Visual. That's not where I expected an episode about Mexican lagers to go. Shall we, before we actually finish?
Yes.
Should I go through and find some of the facts that maybe we didn't go over?
Yeah, go on.
Okay. So
what you got?
You already know them because you read them. This is exactly why I never put them on the sheet, but in this time I did, because I was like, I want to share this article with you. But then you also found the article, so
I did.
And it's not all from this article. It's not all from the article, because obviously this is a very quite serious article, and I tried to find some stuff that was not as serious to have a little bit of like a lightheartedness on, because it's a very serious topic when we talk about that. Colonialism. And I feel like out of everybody, I'm not the one that can talk about, like, I'm not the one that you want as the face of like your really serious stuff. So I'm glad that this was on you this time, because I completely agree with all of it, but I am probably not the best face and representative of it. So you do it way more justice than I do. But I tried to find some more lighter notes of facts. So the first one, which we did get a beer, but we're not drinking it today. Maybe that's a bonus episode, we don't know. But Two Flints does a beer called Clara. And I was like, that's a nice name. Cool. Assume it is named after someone. No, one of the facts I found was in Mexico, these beers are often referred to as Cerveza Clara, which translates to clear beer. They're widely consumed in Mexico and exported around the world. So yeah, I didn't know that. And I was like,
I didn't know that.
That makes sense now. So that was That was good. I mean, obviously we talked about foods, but this isn't really a fun fact, more of just something that we can, just a talking point really. And I feel like the Omnipollo would be perfect for this. Pairs well with a range of food. So particularly bold and spicy flavors, and they complement dishes like tacos, nachos, ceviche, and grilled meats. And I feel like it would go, the Omnipollo in particular, I feel would go like really, really well with pork carnita.
Or an amber Mexican lager with pork carnitas. Yes, please.
I love carnitas. Carnitas are so good. One cocktail that's made quite commonly with Mexican lagers in particular are micheladas. So somebody I know went on holiday recently to Mexico and like sent a picture to a group chat and was like, what is this? And it said like michelada, and there was like a recipe. And I was like, oh, that effectively, it's kind of, I said, it's basically like a beer cocktail. And the only way I can kind of liken it to is like, it's a beer cocktail that is kind of like part Bloody Mary, part margarita. That's the only way I can really sort of like, I feel like that's a really good way to explain it to somebody that it doesn't know what they're getting into. It's like, it's kind of like a beer margarita, but there's elements of like a Bloody Mary in that. Depending on how it's made, because there's various ways that it can be made. Typically, it is made with beer, lime juice, assorted spices and sauces, and chili peppers. So it tends to have a salted rim. It tends to be a little bit spicy. So like a spicy margarita more than a margarita. And then you have like an element of like the Bloody Mary, where you might have a bit of like the sauce part to it. But yeah, that is something that you will see commonly, and everyone kind of makes it their own way. Like certain places will have their own style and twist to it, which is really interesting. Obviously, we already talked about the Vienna lager stuff there, but what I thought was interesting was that like all the history that he gave about this person trying to sort of get people on side,
force his love.
Yeah, what did you cultivate it?
Cultivating a love for Vienna lagers
by
forcing people to have them. I feel like I need to start doing this because I love a Vienna lager and not enough of them.
I'm just saying, I 100% love the way that you started off with cultivated. You're like, it was a bit forced, but they said cultivated. I'm going to start saying anytime I force something that I'm cultivating it. Like in the office, I want to go to the brewery today for lunch. And then people would be like, I don't really want to. I'm like, well, do you have any better plans? No. And then I'll be like, I cultivated an appreciation for the local brewery because I forced everyone to go enough. Yeah, what was really interesting about that was, like I mentioned earlier, like those points of the cultivation by force was like there wasn't a lot of actual like historical documentation to even say that was a fact, which was like what I thought was interesting. It was just sort of like, it's history, but like we actually don't know if that was it. So
it's one of those lovely beer stories that we like to tell.
But the fact that they also still have Mexican breweries that are naming things like Vienna lager is what makes it really interesting as well. Yeah. It's like, actually, historically, there's not necessarily facts that say 100% this is it, but they still name it the Vienna lager anyways. So we already talked about the lime slice, so I guess there's nothing really there. And then, I think we'd already talked about all the rest of it. So there you go. There's all my facts done and dusted. You took away most of them from me, which is good because I don't have the headspace today to really do all of them. So there you go. I burnt all my headspace out putting the lime in the bottle.
That's brilliant.
There we go. There you have it. I don't know if we're any clearer to anything around.
And I feel like you still have more questions, listeners. So if you want to ask us more questions, or if they want to ask you questions about Mexican lager, where can they get hold of you?
Read the article. You should know by now. I'm not going to educate anyone. But if you have questions, you can ask me, and I will actually do research if I am asked a direct question. So you can ask me on Instagram at adventures_in_hoptimism, or on Gmail you can email me at adventuresinoptimism@gmail.com. If you want to talk to both Joe and I, you might most likely get me. Maybe you'll get Joe. Depends on the day and the format, who gets there first. But yeah, you can write into both of us to tell us how much you feel like me putting the lime in that bottle should have been behind a paywall, because it was great. You can write into both of us. Good. You can find both of us at A Woman's Brew on Facebook, Instagram, X, but as you always know, we're not going to respond there. Probably not. I won't. Joe might.
Highly
I don't know.
doubtful.
I don't even have the login. You gave it to me once. I don't use Twitter, so I don't, X, whatever you want to call it. Or you can email us at awomansbrewpodcast@gmail.com. Joe, if people want to actually get factually correct information, that probably isn't just BS, because you already probably have it to hand. I'll have to do the research. But if somebody wants something that is to hand, where can they talk to you?
You can come and ask me, but I feel like we've exhausted all the information we had about Mexican lagers. Because once again,
There's not
it's
a
a
lot.
beer style that isn't a air quotes beer style. But let's not say that, because that's doing a disservice to the great brewing culture that Mexico has created for itself. But if you want to come talk to me, I love beer learning, and I'm on Facebook, Instagram, X. I'm not going to go there. TikTok and Pinterest. Don't really go to TikTok anymore either, because they started taking down my content because they were rude.
Oh, TikTok is doing that, where they're like just blocking audio for ages.
Things,
or they're just going, oh, that's inappropriate content. And you're like, literally, there's nothing inappropriate on here.
No. So you're going to find me at Instagram, Love Beer Learning. Or you can come to my website, which is lovebeerlearning.co.uk. Got some fun blog posts going up on there. Or you can email me, lovebeerlearning@gmail.com. I think we're going to go record some bonus content.
And what I didn't say, I'm not on the Tiki-Toki. Not that I am on the Tiki-Tokis. I didn't promote it. I just don't put anything there. But if you want to check out some fire hot reels, I've been putting new reels up. You can see my Jurassic Park flute of all my new dinosaur succulent pots that I got. And it is really great. And I'm very proud of it. And Rick was in the background, and I showed it to him. And he went, that's me in the background. And then he was like, and he seemed disappointed, and then he stopped for a minute and he went, but it's funny though, you can post that. So I posted it. So yeah, come and check out the amazing, mind-blowing, awesome reels that I'm making.
The things we make our husbands do. I made Gordon.
You won't believe it. I recorded it in one. I don't know.
Good job. I made Gordon sit and be quiet while I recorded some B-roll while at a tap room the other day.
I think Rick just knows. Like, at this point, he would just take the cat. If I was like, hold this, he'd be like, okay. Like, I made him take a photo. I was going to make him take video of me, and he wouldn't do it. I had him take a photo of me holding a can that says "You can maybe do it" from pretty decent. They had a can that was like the Nike logo, but it said like "You can maybe do it," and I was like, "This can's awesome. Take a photo of me with it." He just does it now. It's fine. But yeah, there you have it. We're going to go record the bonus content now. Go look at our reels and all of our fun things, and check out Coffee for our bonus content. So on that note, I'm going to go back to this one now.
Cheers.